Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? A little low? I'm going to have to hang on to this thing, I guess. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for being here today for the 2022 Day of Mourning ceremony. As we gather here, we are reminded that the town of Bonnyville is situated on Treaty 6 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and is traditionally homeland and home to the First Nations and Métis people today. We respect the histories, languages, and the cultures of the First Nations, Métis, and all First people of Canada whose presence continues to enrich our community. So my name is Bonnie Van Hollen, Director of Operations, and I'll be your MC for this morning. I'm a little rusty, so bear with me. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to thank the sponsors and volunteers that made this event possible. Aztec Safety, Buds and Blooms, the Chamber of Commerce, Stuart Olson, and the Lakeland Regional Safety Committee. It's an honor to be part of this larger shared vision to reduce workplace tragedy by remembering those we have lost and by sharing the power of personal stories. So this morning's agenda will start with a safety we changed it at the last minute. It's going to start with a prayer from our pastor, Pastor David McLean, and then we will have a safety message from our new safety manager. We'll do the proclamation from the mayor, and then we will have our guest speaker, who we're honored to have today. Then we will go outside at 11 and we'll lower the flag and we'll have our moment of silence. So without further ado, I will ask Pastor David McLean to come up and do the prayer. You might have to hang on to this.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. It's good to see you here. I appreciate the opportunity to be at this time with you for a time of prayer as we think of crisis and tragedy that people go through in life. One of the first questions they want to ask is why? And inevitably, we go back to the question, who is God? And so when we deal with it and face it, we have to ask those fundamental questions about how do we deal with grief? How do we deal with tragedy? How do we face those things? And of course, over the years, we've developed answers and understanding better about it. But the fact remains is that we have limited control over things that happen sometimes, and we're utterly dependent on God's help and assistance and grace. So let's just pray and just ask for that today. Lord, thank you for your presence here as we remember the various tragedies and crises that bring grief and hardship. We ask for wisdom. We ask for mercy. We ask for grace. We ask for understanding, that you might guide us, that you might strengthen us, that you might help us make sense of the things that happen, even though they don't seem at times to make sense at all. And yet we know you're sovereign and controlled, and there's a divine plan that you have in place that ultimately will be realized. Help us in the meantime to trust you and to find peace and strength through you. Guide the service today and all that is said, that you might use it as building us up and building us closer. Amen. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Deb Martin, Corporate Health Safety Manager for the town of Bonnyville. Honorable members of the community, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering here on this important day to remember those men, women, uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, moms and dads, and family who have left us. We go to work to provide for our families, to join in community, to gain friendships that can last a lifetime. We are here today to reflect on those who have taken from us during our workday, taken from our work families, homes, businesses, and communities. I stand here today to share a story, my story, where I worked with and lost 5 co-workers throughout my work years. It has been roughly 15, 20 years now, but I can still remember each of these men. I remember where I was when I got the call. I remember the names, dates, husbands, wives, children. I remember the funerals. I remember the events that took them from us: a suicide, a heart attack on site, after-hours farm accident, a young fellow on service rig from New Brunswick, and a welder inside a fluid hauler trailer. Not one more important than the other, younger or older, inexperienced or veteran. A loss felt by many. No man is an island. The waves reach many. The pain washes over those who knew them. They say time heals all pain. How much time? Is it relevant? If I may recall a suicide victim, he didn't show up for work that day. This was unusual. This started a cascade of emergency events, accumulating with the finding of our friend, co-worker, in his home. Remember the waves? These waves reached further than we knew. This man, who we'd worked with for years, he was divorced, he was happy, he was making weekend plans with his 2 children that he bragged about. Fast forward to the funeral, where 5 children came to remember Dad. Waves grow and subside, some closer than others. All of them touched us that day as we said our goodbyes. Please take a moment, use your safety training, analyze the task, evaluate the risk, carry your loved ones in your heart each day. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I guess, well, you will have Madam Mayor up here to do the proclamation. Alyssa, there you are. Sorry, I didn't even see you. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Deb, for that great story. I think not only when I reflect on your words, I think it's also important as employers that we keep our workers safe and do all we can to keep them safe when they're away from their families and their workers as well. But today I'd like to read out the Proclamation National Day of Mourning. Whereas on April 28th, 2022, people across Canada will recognize a day of mourning for all workers who have been killed, injured, or disabled at their place of work. Whereas pardon me, it is with deep sadness that over 200 workers in Alberta died as a result of workplace injury or illness in 2021. Whereas on April 28th, 2022, the town of Bonnyville, MD of Bonnyville, and City of Cold Lake will join Albertans in remembering those workers injured or killed on the job and honor their memory by committing to work together to prevent workplace injuries. Therefore, I, Lisa Barrasso, Mayor of the town of Bonnyville, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2022 as the National Day of Mourning in the town of Bonnyville. Thank you.
So now it's time for our guest speaker. His name is Eric Nelson. He's a superintendent with Stuart Olson at Imperial Oil Resources. And we thank you very much for joining us today. And please come up here and tell us your story.
So, I'm not very much of a public speaker, so I'll just start by explaining my story here. When I look at my crews in the morning, I speak heavily of trust, right? The trust and the commitment that a family has given to me to allow them to make them come home safe. We hold high integrity when we speak about this in the morning. We hold it steadfast every single day we're out there. When we do our flahas, we do our hazard hunts, do our LPOs. Imperial loves acronyms, same as Stuart Olson, just like the rest of the world. But I guarantee you, all these things are there to keep our people safe. I'm 34 years old, and I had an event happen to me 22 years ago. I lost my father in a workplace accident, right? There's so much I can tell you of miscommunication, stories you hear that goes out to families everywhere that you don't know, even to this day, what really happened. There are times where he was a father, he was a brother, he could have been a grandparent, and he was a son, right? You grow up a different way of thinking, and I carry that every single day. This tragic event has only made me stronger as a person and allowed me to touch other people in their personal lives to help them get home safely. I keep that in my back of my mind every single day, that everyone I work out there doesn't get a call from their families, doesn't get to wonder what if, what could happen, and what should have been done. There's times when, I'll just get back to it, you're so young at that point in time that you never hear the full story. Everything breaks up, memories forget, but I think we've made this such a tremendous occasion to have this day to reflect on all the people we've lost. My story is one of millions of stories of people that have been lost. Everyone's felt the heartache of loss, and we should feel their presence and celebrate their joy. Everyone had a reason to be on this earth, and everyone moves forward all together, stronger. So I'd like to thank everybody for giving me an opportunity to share my story. I'd go more in depth, but I'm not strong enough to hold back the tears, so I'll be honest with you. But I thank you guys for your time, and thanks for allowing me to guest speaker. I'm very honored to be in the presence of everyone here, so thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing your story. Well, it takes a lot of courage to get up here and share a personal tragedy like that. Is a room full of strangers, probably most people, but that's what makes it impactful, and that's what makes it, such a good event to have, because it touches people in a way that isn't just something that you read, right? So, I know from past experience, just when I left my last career and went into the oil field, I thought, this is awesome because I can control all of the variables now. And when I got there, I was in for a surprise, because there's always people. And when there's people, there's always independent variables that you can't control. You can't control what everybody's going to do in a blink of a moment, so you're just kind of winging it. And I had some bad mentors, I'm not going to lie. It was pretty scary. Had some close calls. And it wasn't until a few years later, when I transferred up to Imperial Oil, that I realized how many times my life previously had probably been in danger and I didn't even know it, because you don't know what you don't know. So if somebody's not there to guide you and mentor you and show you, that part is so important, because if you don't recognize the hazard, it's going to catch up with you eventually. So that's what I'd like to get across to everybody here. Same as Deborah, take that stuff home with you. Make sure that you're sharing it with everybody that you work with, and you should be treating everybody out there like they're part of your family, because at the end of the day, we're spending more time with our people that we work with than we are with our own families. So thank you very much, and we will head outside shortly for a moment of silence, and when we lower the flag. Thanks.